Hello class. So today we're going to learn how to graph a parabola. There are many different ways to do this, so we will go by each one of them as the time goes on. So the first way to graph a parabola is to find the vertex of a parabola. So as you can see up here, this is a form of a parabola. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So a, b, and c can be any rational numbers. So to find the vertex of the parabola, we use a formula that says x equals negative b over 2a. So we use the b and the a from the previous formula. So I gave an example. If we have y equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 6, we need to find the vertex. So we use x equals negative b over 2a. So our b is negative 4. Like right there. So that went down here. So there's a negative still out in front, and our b was negative 4. Now our a is 2. So that came down here to be 2 times a, which is 2. So x would then become 4 divided by 4, which is 1. So our vertex is at when x equals 1. So now to find the y point, we plug our x, which is 1, into our normal equation up here. And like you can see, we get y equals negative 8. So the vertex is 1, negative 8. And you can see that on the graph. That's that point all the way down at the very bottom right here. If you count over 1 and go, or it kind of cuts out a little bit, but pretty close to right at the very bottom down here. It'll go a little lower. So that's to find the vertex of a parabola. Now we're going to find another way to find the vertex, or to find different parts of a parabola. So another thing we need to do is find the x-intercepts. So the x-intercepts are these 2 points. So what's in common between these 2 points are that the y points are both 0. So we need to set our original equation equal to 0 because our y is 0. Now we must factor. There are many ways to factor, but a quick way is called the big X. So it becomes this big X right here that we get, this X. What you do is this top term up here is this 2x squared times by negative 6, and that becomes negative 12x squared. And then this negative 4x, which is in the middle, comes down at the bottom. How we do this big X is we're trying to figure out two numbers, like these two numbers, that multiply to become this, but add to become this. So with a little bit of thinking, we figure out that negative 6x and 2x multiply to become negative 12x squared, and they add to become negative 4x. So now what we do is we call what I call draw the U. So we start from the first term, we go down to the negative 6x, over to the 2x, and then back up to the last term, which is the negative 6. And so write it in that order. So we write it as 2x squared minus 6x plus 2x minus 6. Now what you do is you look at these first two terms. So we got to figure out what can be taken out of these two. Okay, a 2x can be taken out of here, which became there. And what was left over is an x minus 3. And then in this one, a 2 can be taken out, and what's left over an x minus 3. So altogether, you can write it as x minus 3 times 2x plus 2. So then, you set both of these equal to 0, which concludes that we get x equal to 3 and x equal to negative 1, which became our two x-intercepts on this graph right here. Okay, now another way to find a graph is just to find other points, which uses just a t-chart. So as you can see here, this is a t-chart. And what you do is we still have the same equation, y equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. So what you do is you start plugging in points. So I want to plug in negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3 for x. So I can plot my points and I can make my curve. So when I plug negative 1 in this equation, I get 0. When I plug 0 in here, we get 2 times 0 minus 4 times 0 minus 6, which is negative 6. When you plug 1 in, you get negative 8. When you plug 2 in, you get negative 6. And lastly, when you plug 3 in, you get 0. So all these points you can draw on this curve. So like negative 1, 0, 0, negative 6, negative 1, negative 8, and so on. So you just keep plotting those points, and then it makes, when you draw them all together, it's going to make a nice parabola. The last way to find how a parabola will look like is the vertex form. It's probably the most confusing at first, but it's very helpful. So the vertex form is this formula: y equals a x minus h squared plus k. So h and k is our vertex, kind of like what we found the first time. So let's say we have this equation. What we want to do first is we want x squared to be by itself. So, now we'll go back. Okay, there you go. So we'll have x squared by itself. So first we need to take a 2 away from there. So I took a 2 out of this whole thing. But this negative 6, I don't want that anymore, because that's not going to help me make a perfect square like you can see up here. So I took the negative 6 and put it outside the parentheses. So when I factor 2 out of both of these, you get a x squared, and this becomes a 2x. Now I got to complete the square. So completing the square, what you do is you take this middle term, which is our b, you divide it by 2, and you square it, and that's what's going to go in this spot right here. So when you take this negative 2, you divide it by 2, which becomes 1, or negative 1, doesn't really matter, and then you square it, which then becomes 1, kind of like you see right here. But since we added 1 right here, well, you can't just add a 1 out of nowhere. So what we really did is, didn't we add a 1, but we multiplied it by 2? So altogether we really added 2. So what we have to do is we have to subtract 2 on the outside right there. So now we have, when you combine it together, we get 2 times x squared minus 2x plus 1, and then minus 8. Now x squared minus 2x plus 1 is a perfect square. So it comes down to x minus 1 squared. And how you can do that to figure out what this term is always going to be whatever this term was divided by 2. So now we look for what was our h and k to find the vertex. Well, our h is this x minus h, and our k is this. So x minus h, so h is 1, and then it's plus k, so k would be negative 8. So our vertex is 1, negative 8. And isn't that the same as what we got the whole from the very beginning slide? From this slide right here, so our vertex is 1, negative 8. Oh, so it worked out nicely that we got exactly the same thing. So those are the 4 ways that you can graph a parabola, and it's using vertex form, just plotting points, finding x-intercepts, and lastly, finding the vertex of a parabola a different way than vertex form. Alright, so hopefully this will help you do your homework, and I will see you in class. Alright, bye.